Russia has been accused of attempted sabotage after the navigation system failed on a plane which was carrying the President of the European Commission.
A safe landing in Bulgaria, but not without incident. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, was flying from Warsaw to Plovdiv when the pilot reported the satellite navigation signal was jammed as they came in to land. The pilot was forced to circle around before landing.
We have received information from the Bulgarian authorities that they suspect that this was due to blatant interference.
Imagine cruising thousands of feet above the ground when suddenly the navigation system goes dark. No GPS, no safe guidance, only uncertainty in the skies.
Interference, which forced the pilot to land using paper maps instead of instruments. The Kremlin has reportedly denied involvement.
Watch this video until the end to find out what will happen. What happened? Something like this happened recently when Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, was on her way to Bulgaria. Her plane suddenly lost its GPS system, which is like the airplane's eyes in the sky. The Bulgarian air traffic controllers quickly noticed what was happening. They told the pilot to switch to old-style ground navigation systems. The pilot even had to use paper maps and circle around for an hour before finally landing the plane safely in Plovdiv, a city in Bulgaria. Nobody was hurt, but this was not a small mistake or a random error. Authorities in Bulgaria said they suspected Russia was behind this jamming attack. Now, let's understand what this means. GPS jamming is when a strong signal from the ground blocks the weaker satellite signals that planes, ships, and even your phone use to find their location. Russia has advanced technology for this, and it has been accused of using it many times in recent years. By sending out these strong signals, they can confuse or even blind airplanes. In Ursula von der Leyen's case, the timing was very suspicious. She was on a 4-day trip visiting countries on the edge of Russia and Belarus. These are frontline nations, and Russia wanted to send a message. Why it matters. This is not the first time Russia has been blamed for such tricks. In 2024, the then UK Defence Secretary Grant Shapps had his plane's GPS jammed while flying back from Poland near the Russian border in Kaliningrad. Even the head of Germany's armed forces, Carsten Breuer, reported experiencing GPS interference while flying in military aircraft over the Baltic Sea. Estonia also accused Russia of jamming flights over its territory, which even forced 2 Finnair planes to turn back to Helsinki because they could not safely land in Tartu. The problem is growing worse. Lithuania reported more than 1,000 cases of GPS interference in June 2025, which was 22 times more than in June 2024. Estonia said that about 85% of its flights were affected by jamming. Poland recorded almost 2,732 incidents of jamming and spoofing in January 2025 alone. This shows that it is not just one small event, but a huge wave of attacks that are putting pilots, passengers, and even civilians on the ground at risk. Russia calls these claims incorrect, but the evidence says otherwise. Flight trackers showed that other planes in the area were not affected when Ursula von der Leyen's plane lost its GPS. This made experts believe that her plane was deliberately targeted. This is part of what we call hybrid warfare. Hybrid warfare is when a country attacks not only with soldiers and weapons, but also with hidden tricks like cyber attacks, sabotage, cutting undersea cables, and GPS jamming. These tricks create fear, confusion, and pressure without starting a full-scale war. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte spoke very clearly about this after the incident. He said that Russia is using hybrid threats like GPS jamming, cutting undersea cables in the Baltic Sea, cyber attacks on hospitals, and even plots to assassinate people in Europe. He warned that the whole continent is now under direct threat, not just countries close to Russia. In his words, "We are all on the eastern flank now, whether you live in London or Tallinn." This means that no European country can feel completely safe anymore. A missile launched from Russia today can reach Western Europe in only 5 to 10 minutes. That is very little time to react. So, what happened to Ursula von der Leyen's plane is not just a random accident. It is part of a bigger picture where Russia is testing Europe again and again to see how it reacts. But this raises an important question. Why is Russia doing this? Since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Russia has been isolated by Europe and the West. It has faced sanctions, military pressure, and huge losses in the war. By using hybrid tactics like jamming, Russia can still hurt Europe, cause panic, and remind everyone that it can create chaos whenever it wants. For example, Russia has also been blamed for sabotage operations, cyber attacks, and even vandalism across Europe. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, suspected Russian sabotage operations in Europe almost quadrupled between 2023 and 2024. Why Europe must act? The European Union knows this very well. That is why EU Defence Commissioner Andrius Kubilius announced plans to launch more satellites in low orbit to help detect interference better. Europe also started using Galileo's new anti-spoofing technology in 2025 to protect signals from being faked or blocked. Some countries, like Poland, are investing in cyber defense and counter-jamming systems. But even with all this, experts warn that more needs to be done. Still, Ursula von der Leyen did not back down. She continued her tour of frontline nations like Lithuania, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Poland, and Romania. Standing in Bulgaria, she said of Vladimir Putin, "He is a predator. He can only be kept in check through strong deterrence." Her words made it clear that Europe cannot afford to ignore these threats anymore. So, what is the weak point of Russia that Europe must target? Russia may be strong in weapons and technology, but it is weak when Europe shows unity. Moscow wants to break Europe apart by using fear, confusion, and hybrid attacks. But if Europe builds stronger defenses, invests in technology, shares intelligence, and stands firm together with NATO, Russia's tricks lose power. As EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas explained, Russia is already spending more on its military than on healthcare, education, or social programs. This shows that Moscow is preparing for long-term confrontation. But at the same time, such heavy spending is also a weakness. It drains the country's economy and creates pressure at home. The European Union and NATO must therefore target Russia's weak points by cutting its ability to disrupt Europe's daily life, punishing sabotage with strong responses, and boosting resilience so that jamming, cyber attacks, or sabotage cannot break Europe's systems. Hybrid attacks work only if the target is unprepared. If Europe builds strong backup systems, invests in secure satellites, and makes it impossible for Russia's tricks to succeed, then Moscow loses one of its main tools of power. NATO and the EU are already working closely. Mark Rutte said the alliance is now preparing policies to counter these threats day and night. Europe has even considered that if a hybrid attack caused a deadly accident, it could one day trigger NATO's Article 5, the rule that says an attack on one member is an attack on all. That shows how serious this is becoming. So, let's put it all together. Europe now faces a simple truth. It no longer has the choice to ignore these threats. It must act, and it must act together. The weak point of Russia is that while it can play games in the shadows, it cannot face a united, strong, and prepared Europe. By targeting this weakness with strong defense, new satellites, anti-jamming systems, and unshakable unity, Europe can protect itself and show Moscow that intimidation will not work. That's all for today. If you found this video interesting, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates.